John Miller had lived on his ranch for so many years that the quiet desert had become a part of him. His ranch sat miles away from the nearest town, surrounded by open stretches of land, soft hills in the distance, and long rows of wooden fences that needed repairing every few weeks. Most days were peaceful and predictable. John woke before sunrise, made a cup of coffee, and stepped outside to smell the cool morning air. He would feed his cattle, check the water troughs, and ride along the fence line to make sure no section had fallen overnight. He liked the calm life. He liked the way the sun rose slowly over the land, painting everything in gold. He liked the sound of cows calling, wind brushing against dry grasses, and the chirping of birds hiding in mesquite trees. He did not dislike people, but he had grown comfortable with solitude. Months would pass with only a few small conversations, usually with a neighbor who lived 10 miles away, or with the man who delivered supplies once every 2 weeks. On this particular evening, the sky was painted with shades of soft orange and pale purple as the sun dipped low. John was riding his horse back toward the barn after checking the farthest part of his land. A quiet breeze flowed through the air, carrying a hint of coming coolness. Everything seemed normal until he noticed something unusual near his corrals. A lone figure stood a short distance away, still and calm, as if waiting. The soft evening light made it hard to see clearly at first. John gently pulled the reins and slowed his horse. As he got closer, he realized it was a woman, an Apache woman dressed in simple clothes, covered slightly in dust, as if she had been traveling for a long time. She stood straight, but he could see she was tired. Her hair was dark and braided loosely, and her eyes looked kind but weary. She did not step forward or raise her hands. She simply waited, showing respect for his space. John was surprised. It was rare to meet anyone near his ranch, especially someone traveling alone. He stopped a few steps away, keeping his voice gentle. "Evening," he said softly. The woman nodded once. "Evening," she replied. Her voice was calm but carried exhaustion. John dismounted from his horse. "Is everything all right?" he asked, not wanting to sound suspicious, only concerned. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "My name is Ayana," she said. "I have been walking for many hours. I hope to find a place to rest for the night." John looked at her more carefully. Her shoes were worn, her shoulders slightly lowered from tiredness, and the bag she carried was light, as if she had little with her. She did not appear to be a threat. Instead, she looked like someone who had been through a long journey and simply needed kindness. He knew the desert could be unforgiving, especially at night when temperatures dropped quickly. He also knew it would not be right to turn away someone who needed help. "You're welcome to stay here for the night," he told her with a small nod. "I have a spare room." Ayana's expression softened, and she bowed her head slightly in gratitude. "Thank you," she said quietly. John guided his horse into the barn and removed the saddle while Ayana followed at a respectful distance. Though tired, she helped him close the barn doors and carried a small bucket of water without being asked. John noticed how naturally she moved around animals, calm, steady, and thoughtful. Inside the house, John offered her a simple meal, warm beans, bread he had baked earlier, and fresh water. She accepted with appreciation, eating slowly, as if savoring each bite after a long day of travel. For the first few minutes, they sat quietly. John wasn't sure how much she wanted to share, and he didn't want to pressure her. But after finishing her meal, she looked up. "I was hoping to reach a settlement farther north," she said. "I misjudged the distance. I walked longer than I expected." John nodded. Walking through the desert was never easy. Distances appeared shorter than they were, and the sun could drain energy quickly. "Where are you headed?" he asked gently. "To visit a relative," she replied. "Someone who is very old and lives far from my home. I wanted to see her before winter comes." Her explanation was simple but believable. Her eyes carried sincerity, and John trusted his instincts. He felt comfortable around her, though he couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was her calm presence or the respectful way she spoke. After dinner, John showed her the spare room. It was not fancy, just a small bed, a wooden chair, and a window overlooking the corral, but it was clean and safe. Ayanna thanked him again. "You have been very kind," she said softly. "Anyone would do the same," John replied, though he knew that was not always true. She placed her small bag on the floor and took a slow breath, as if relieved to finally rest. John stepped back, giving her privacy. "Good night," he said. "Good night," she answered. John walked to his own room but felt a strange awareness, an unusual feeling that his quiet ranch day had changed in an unexpected way. He wasn't afraid, but he sensed there was more to her story, something she had not told him yet. But he also knew not everyone wanted to reveal their burdens to a stranger on the first night. As he lay down, he listened to the soft nighttime sounds, the distant calls of coyotes, the rustle of wind against the walls, and the gentle shifting of animals outside. Everything was peaceful, but his thoughts stayed on the woman sleeping in the next room. Who was she exactly? Why was she traveling alone? Was she truly only visiting a relative, or was there something she was running from or searching for? Still, he reminded himself that trust began with small steps. She had come to his home respectfully, asked politely, and shown no signs of trouble. Sometimes people simply needed a place to rest, a moment to breathe, and a bit of kindness along their path. Early the next morning, John woke before sunrise as always. He stepped outside, letting the cool air hit his face. The sky was still dark, but hints of pink and blue were beginning to appear on the horizon. He fed the animals quietly, expecting Ayanna to still be asleep. But to his surprise, when he returned to the porch, he found her already awake. She stood near the corral, watching the sky brighten. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes were alert, as if she was used to waking early and keeping watch. "You're awake early," John said with a small smile. She turned to him. "The morning is my favorite time," she replied. "It tells me a new day has begun." He appreciated the simple truth in her words. She offered to help with chores, and though he didn't want to burden her, she insisted kindly. Together they gathered eggs, fed the horses, and checked the gates. John noticed that she worked quietly, with purpose. She did not complain, nor did she seem uncomfortable. In fact, she looked more at peace than she had the night before. He wondered again about her journey, but before he could ask further, something unexpected happened. Ayanna suddenly paused and looked toward the distant road. Her eyes narrowed slightly as if she recognized something. John turned to follow her gaze, but at first he saw nothing. The morning light was brightening the land, creating long shadows. Then, far away, he spotted movement, small shapes slowly approaching from the direction of the open plains. He squinted. "Looks like riders," he murmured. Ayanna didn't move. Her expression changed, not with fear, but with recognition. "They are coming," she said softly. "Who?" John asked. But she only watched silently as the distant figures grew clearer. What John didn't know was that the peaceful morning was about to become far more surprising than anything he had imagined the night before. The morning sun had just begun to warm the land when John noticed the three distant riders approaching. At first, they looked like small moving dots across the open desert, slowly growing clearer as they came closer. The horses walked at an easy pace, their silhouettes rising and dipping along the uneven ground. John shaded his eyes with his hand to see better. Beside him, Ayanna stood very still. Her calm expression remained the same, but her eyes held a hint of recognition. It was the kind of look someone had when they saw familiar faces after a long and tiring journey. "Do you know them?" John asked quietly. Ayanna didn't answer immediately. She kept watching the riders until they were near enough for their features to start taking shape. Only then did she nod slowly. "Yes," she said softly. "They are part of my group." John felt a wave of mixed feelings. He wasn't sure what to expect. He had offered shelter to one tired traveler, but now 3 more were approaching his ranch. He didn't mind helping people, but he wanted to understand the situation clearly. His ranch was peaceful, and he liked it that way. Unexpected guests could change the rhythm of his quiet life. The riders drew closer, and John finally saw them clearly. 3 Apache women, all a little dusty from travel, their bags tied behind their saddles. They sat upright on their horses, moving with steady confidence. Ayanna stepped forward, the morning sunlight touching her face as she lifted her hand in greeting. One of the women at the front raised hers in return. "They found me," Ayanna said, her voice carrying emotion, relief mixed with gratitude. John relaxed slightly. The scene didn't look threatening at all. The 3 riders did not rush or show any unfriendly signs. They simply approached with calmness and familiarity. When they reached the ranch, the first woman dismounted gracefully. She was taller than Ayanna, with long hair tied back in a simple braid. Her eyes were soft but observant, taking in the ranch surroundings with quiet curiosity. "Ayanna," she said with a warm tone, stepping forward to embrace her gently. The other 2 riders also dismounted, smiling softly as they gathered around Ayanna. John stayed a few steps back, giving them space. He didn't want to interrupt the reunion. After a few moments, Ayanna turned toward him with the 3 women standing beside her. "These are my companions," she said. "This is Nita, Kimi, and Tala." The 3 women nodded respectfully toward John. Their manner was calm and polite. They did not rush forward or make any sudden movement. Instead, they showed appreciation simply through their posture and quiet smiles. "We followed Ayanna's trail," Nita said kindly. "We hope to find her safe." John returned the nod. "She's been safe here," he said. "I'm glad you all found each other." The women exchanged relieved glances. After long hours of travel, the comfort of finally reuniting seemed to bring them peace. John noticed how tired they all looked. Their clothes were dusty, and their faces carried the marks of wind and sun. The horses also appeared ready for rest. It was clear they had been moving for many hours. "Would you like water for your horses?" John offered. They accepted gratefully. Together, John and the women guided the horses toward the trough. The animals drank deeply, shaking their heads as the cool water touched their mouths. While the horses rested, the women sat on the porch. John brought out a small jug of water and simple cups. As they drank, Ayanna finally began to explain more of the story. "We were traveling together," she said. "We planned to reach the northern settlement before sunset yesterday, but on the way, our group became separated." Kimi nodded. "We followed a path we thought was correct," she added. "Ayanna took another route ahead of us. She is a fast walker, so she went farther than she expected." Tala smiled gently. "We thought she would wait at a familiar point," she said, "but the path changed, and we ended up searching for her the whole afternoon." Ayanna looked at John. "That is why I reached your ranch alone," she said. "I was too tired to keep walking and needed a safe place for the night." John listened carefully. Their explanation was simple, honest, and made sense. Desert travel could be unpredictable. The land was large, and even a small mistake in direction could separate groups easily. He realized these women were not lost forever. They were simply delayed and needed rest before continuing their journey. Their peaceful presence reassured him even more. Nita leaned forward slightly. "We are grateful she found your home," she said, "and grateful you welcomed her." John shrugged modestly. "Anyone would have helped," he said. Kimi gave a small smile. "Not everyone does," she replied softly. He didn't argue because he knew she was right. Not everyone would open their door to strangers, especially in remote areas. But John had always believed that kindness was a simple thing to offer. The women settled comfortably on the porch, removing their bags and stretching their tired legs. John noticed they moved with grace and unity, as if they had traveled together for many years. Each one carried her strength quietly, without needing to show it openly. Ayana asked if she could help with morning chores again. This time, the other 3 women joined her. John tried to convince them to rest, but they insisted politely. He admired their determination. Together, they walked to the barn. Tala helped refill the feed bins, while Kimi carefully checked the fence near the back corral. Nita carried buckets of water without complaint. Their teamwork was natural, and their presence added a gentle liveliness to John's usually quiet routine. While they worked, they shared small stories about their homes, their families, and the places they had visited. None of their stories were heavy or uncomfortable. They spoke with lightness, turning the simple tasks into moments of easy conversation. John found himself listening more than talking. He liked their voices, calm, soft, respectful. Their presence warmed the morning air in a way he hadn't expected. When the chores were done, they all gathered near the porch again. John offered a simple breakfast, bread, fruit, and warm tea. The women accepted with sincere gratitude. The scent of tea drifted peacefully through the air as they ate. Ayana explained more about their journey. "We want to reach the settlement before the next 2 days," she said. "Our relative is very old, and she will be happy to see us." John nodded. "You can rest here for today," he said. "You all look like you need it." The 3 women exchanged thankful glances. They truly did look tired. Not weak, but worn from long hours of travel. "We do not wish to trouble you," Nita said gently. "It isn't trouble," John assured her. "I don't get much company out here. It's nice having people around for a change." The women smiled at that, and Ayana looked especially relieved. As the morning turned into afternoon, the ranch became livelier than it had been in years. The women sat in the shade, fixing some worn straps on their bags, brushing their horses, and talking quietly among themselves. Sometimes they laughed softly, and even that simple sound brightened the quiet land. From time to time, John caught himself watching them from a distance, not out of suspicion, but with a sort of warm curiosity. These women had brought a gentle energy to his home, a soft break in the routine he had lived for so long. By late afternoon, the air grew cooler, and a light breeze swept across the ranch. The women felt refreshed after hours of rest, and their horses looked more energetic too. Ayana approached John. "We are thankful," she said softly. "Your kindness has given us strength to continue." John nodded. "You can stay the night," he said firmly. "Traveling at dusk isn't safe. Leave in the morning when the light is good." The 3 women exchanged relieved looks again. Kimi placed a hand over her heart as a gesture of gratitude. "You have a generous spirit," she said. John felt a quiet warmth in his chest. He wasn't used to compliments, but their sincerity touched him. As evening settled, the sky turned golden, then pink, then a soft blue-gray. The women helped prepare a simple supper, working smoothly beside John as if they had been part of his home for much longer than a day. After dinner, they sat outside, watching the sky fill with stars. The women shared peaceful stories, not dramatic ones, stories of rivers, seasons, childhood memories, and lessons learned from nature. John listened, feeling as if he were hearing pieces of a world he had never known. When the night grew deeper and the air cooler, everyone slowly prepared to rest. John showed the women where they could sleep comfortably indoors. They thanked him softly, each one expressing appreciation in her own gentle way. As John walked to his room, He paused for a moment. His home, once silent and empty, now held quiet laughter, soft voices, and the sound of guests breathing peacefully as they slept. He realized that sometimes unexpected visitors brought unexpected warmth, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel alone. The next morning arrived gently, with soft sunlight stretching slowly across the ranch. The air carried a quiet coolness, one that usually came before a warm day. John woke early, as he always did, but this time he didn't step into an empty, quiet house. He heard soft movement from the guest rooms, the gentle sounds of people preparing for a new day. It felt different, but in a pleasant way. He stepped outside to check on the animals, and after a few minutes, he saw Ayanna and the other 3 women joining him. They all looked well-rested, their faces brighter than the day before. Travelers always carry their journey on their shoulders, and after a night of comfort, that weight shows just a little less. "You're up early?" John said with a small smile. Ayanna returned the smile. "Old habits," she replied. "When you travel often, you learn to wake with the light." The others nodded in agreement. Nita helped scoop feed for the horses. Kimi began brushing one of the mares, and Tala filled the water buckets with steady hands. They moved like a team, each knowing exactly what task to take without needing instruction. John sometimes felt awkward when people tried to help him on the ranch, but their presence didn't bother him. They worked quietly and respectfully. They didn't rush, but they didn't slow down either. Every task they touched seemed to be handled with care. When the animals were fed and the morning chores were done, the group sat together on the porch. John poured warm tea into cups. The warm steam rose into the cool morning air. For a while, everyone simply enjoyed the peace. Then Ayanna took a slow breath, as if preparing to explain something important. "There is something we would like to share with you," she said gently. John looked at her and nodded. "I'm listening." Ayanna glanced at the other 3 women, and they all gave small, encouraging nods. She shifted slightly, settling into a more comfortable position before speaking. "We were not only traveling to visit a relative," she began softly. "There is more to our journey." John listened with quiet attention. Her voice carried a peaceful tone, not dramatic or heavy, but gentle and honest. "Our group lives far from here," she continued, "in a place where families stay close and support one another. The woman we are going to see, our elder, has been important to us since childhood. She taught us many things about life, nature, and traditions." Tala added with a small smile, "She is like a grandmother to our whole community." Kimi continued, "She has always encouraged us to follow our own paths, to explore, to learn, and to help others wherever we go." Nita looked at John. "That is why when she asked us to visit her before winter arrives, we wanted to go." John nodded slowly. Everything sounded peaceful and sincere, but he sensed there was still more. Ayanna went on. "We left together, but a small mix-up in the trail separated us. I walked ahead, thinking the others were just behind me. When I realized they had taken the path to the right, I tried to follow their tracks, but the land became confusing." John remembered how tired she had looked when she arrived at his ranch. Her shoes dusty, her steps heavy. "I walked too long," she said gently. "The sun grew low, and I could not travel farther. That is when I came to your home." "And we found her trail early in the morning," Nita added. "We followed it with hope, praying she was safe." Kimi smiled softly at Ayanna. "We were relieved when we saw her standing here." John understood now. It wasn't a complicated story. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply real. 4 women traveling together, separated by the land, reunited with relief. A journey filled with dedication and love for someone important. But Ayanna wasn't finished. "There is another reason we travel together," she said. A reason we didn't explain last night? Not because we wanted to hide it, but because we were tired and needed rest. She paused for a moment, collecting her thoughts. We travel not just for ourselves, she said. We travel to bring small gifts and acts of kindness to the people we meet along the way. John looked at her with curiosity. Kindness? He repeated softly. Ayanna nodded. Yes. Our elder taught us that every journey should leave something good behind, even if it is small. A good word, a repaired gate, a helping hand. Something that makes the world a little lighter. Tala gently tapped the porch floor with her fingers. Some people carry tools. We carry kindness. Kimmy laughed softly. It doesn't weigh much, but it travels far. John felt warmth in his chest. Their philosophy was simple, almost poetic, and he realized that in the short time they had been there, he had already felt that kindness. They helped with chores, treated him with respect, and filled the ranch with a gentle calm. So that is the real purpose of your journey, he said thoughtfully. Not just to visit your elder, but to bring kindness along the way. Ayanna smiled. Yes. And sometimes kindness is also accepting help when we need it. Nita looked at John with sincerity. And you showed that to Ayanna when she arrived alone. John shook his head modestly. I only did what seemed right. Sometimes what seems simple to one person is a blessing to another, Tala said softly. The morning breeze passed through the porch, making the moment feel peaceful and meaningful. After sharing their truth, the women shifted to lighter stories. Memories of their home, moments from earlier journeys, and small lessons they learned from the land. Their voices blended gently with the sounds of the ranch. John listened, sometimes speaking but mostly observing. Their presence felt like warm sunlight settling into the quiet corners of his home. As the morning stretched into afternoon, the women offered to help him with tasks that had been waiting for attention. The gate near the north pasture needed a fix, and John had been ignoring it for weeks. Without needing instruction, the women helped him tighten the hinges and straighten the loose boards. The fence near the barn had a sagging plank. Together, they lifted it back into place and secured it with new nails John brought from the storage shed. The horses needed brushing, and the women did it with care, treating the animals with patience and respect. Everything they touched seemed to become a little better, a little brighter. John realized something he hadn't felt in a long time. The presence of people who wanted to help simply because it was good to help. Not for reward, not for praise, just because it brought goodness into the world. Later in the afternoon, after the work was done, the group rested under the shade of a tree near the barn. The land stretched far in every direction, peaceful and wide. The women sat comfortably on the ground, some leaning against the tree, others sitting cross-legged. It's beautiful here, Tala said, looking over the open space. It is quiet in a good way, Kimi added. Ayanna smiled softly. It feels peaceful. John sat on an old wooden stool, watching them with a gentle expression. It is quiet, he agreed. Some days too quiet, but today feels different. Nita gave him a knowing smile. Sometimes people bring life to a place, she said. Not noise, just life. John looked at them. These 4 travelers who had arrived unexpectedly, yet formed a natural connection with him. He felt something shift inside him. Not something big, but something warm. Something that reminded him that even in solitude, life had ways of surprising people. As the day slowly moved toward evening, the women prepared their belongings. They wanted to leave at sunrise the next morning, giving themselves enough time to reach the northern settlement. Before heading inside for supper, Ayanna approached John. There is one more thing you should know, she said gently. You helped us without asking questions, and because of that, we are grateful. She reached into her small travel pouch and pulled out a tiny woven charm made of colorful threads. Its design was simple but delicate, shaped like a small circle with lines crossing through it. "Our elder taught us to make these," she said. "We give them to people who have shown us kindness. They represent protection and good wishes." She placed the charm in John's hand. "This is for you." John looked at the woven piece, feeling its soft texture between his fingers. It was small, but it felt meaningful, like a quiet blessing. "Thank you," he said, touched. The women smiled warmly. That night, the house felt filled with gentle conversation, soft footsteps, and peaceful energy. The quiet ranch that had once held only John's daily rhythm now held new memories. Memories born from kindness, gratitude, and the unexpected arrival of 4 travelers who carried goodwill wherever they went. And though John didn't know it yet, the next morning would bring a farewell filled with warmth, leaving a lasting imprint on his heart and his home. Part 4 begins with a new kind of silence around him. It was not the silence of loneliness anymore. It was the silence that appears when a person finally decides to look inside their own heart. After everything he had faced, he now understood that the world does not always become calm on its own. Sometimes a person must create their own calmness by changing how they see life. The people around him still had expectations, and many challenges were still waiting outside, but his heart had gained a strength that he never felt before. He woke up earlier than usual that day, feeling different. For the first time in many months, he did not feel confused or lost. Instead, he felt ready. He had finally accepted that his past could not be changed, but his future was still in his hands. He sat on the edge of his bed, thinking about everything that had happened. Every moment, every mistake, every emotional struggle had shaped him. He realized that all those experiences were not just problems, they were lessons. When he walked outside, the world looked the same, yet it felt new. The breeze was cold, but it carried a strange comfort. He watched people walk by, all busy with their lives, and he wondered how many of them were also hiding their pain behind quiet faces. It made him realize something important. Everyone has their own story, their own battles, their own fears. His journey was not the only difficult one, and thinking this way gave him a sense of belonging instead of isolation. He decided that he would no longer wait for the perfect time or perfect situation. He would begin building the kind of life he wanted, step by step. The first step was discipline. He set small goals each day. Some days he met them, and some days he did not, but he did not quit. On days when he felt low, he reminded himself that growth is not always visible. Sometimes the biggest progress happens inside a person's mindset, not outside. Slowly, he started improving in areas he had ignored before. He focused on his work with a clear mind and found that he was more capable than he had ever believed. He practiced patience. He practiced gratitude. Whenever he got angry or discouraged, he would pause and remind himself that reacting out of emotion had only brought problems in the past. He wanted to rise above that now. One of the biggest changes in his life came when he stopped expecting others to understand him completely. He realized that nobody can feel your pain the way you do, and nobody can fight your battles for you. This realization did not make him bitter. Instead, it made him stronger. He stopped seeking validation from people and started appreciating himself for trying, even on difficult days. His friendships also began to improve. When he interacted with people, he was calmer, more thoughtful, and more understanding. He listened more than he spoke. He noticed when someone was upset and tried to comfort them in simple, gentle ways. He did not try to impress anyone. He simply tried to be real. Because of this, people felt more comfortable around him. They felt safe sharing their thoughts with him. He learned that kindness does not need grand gestures. Sometimes it is just about being present when someone needs to talk. In the evenings, he started going for long walks. These walks became a kind of therapy for him. As he walked, he would think about his goals, his mistakes, and his dreams. With every step, he let go of something from the past that had been weighing on his heart. He began to understand that healing is not a single moment. It is a continuous journey. Some days you feel strong, and some days you feel weak, but both days matter. One day, while sitting alone with his thoughts, he realized that he no longer blamed himself as much as before. He had forgiven others, but more importantly, he had forgiven himself. This was the turning point. The emotional burden he had carried for so long began to fade. For the first time in many years, he felt truly light, as if a heavy stone had been lifted from his chest. His family also noticed the change. They saw that he was calmer, more responsible, and more focused. Their trust in him grew again, and he felt proud of himself for earning it back. He understood the value of these small improvements. Every moment of discipline, every moment of patience, was slowly shaping a better version of him. As time passed, he started dreaming again. Not the unrealistic dreams that people dream when they are lost, but real, practical dreams that could be achieved with hard work. He made plans for his future, not with pressure, but with quiet confidence. He wanted stability. He wanted peace. He wanted a life in which he could stand tall and say that he built everything with honesty and determination. He also became more spiritual in his own way. He began to appreciate the quiet moments, the sunsets, the stars at night, and the early morning air. He realized that true happiness often hides in the smallest parts of life. It is not always about success or money. Sometimes it is about simplicity, sincerity, and being content with what you have. Slowly, his self-respect returned. He felt proud of the person he was becoming. He knew he still had a long way to go, but the fear of failure no longer stopped him. If he failed, he would try again. If he fell, he would get up. His strength came not from perfection, but from resilience. As the final months passed, he reached a point where he could look back at his past without feeling hurt. Instead of seeing pain, he saw progress. Instead of feeling regret, he felt gratitude. Everything he had gone through had taught him something valuable. Every disappointment had pushed him toward growth. Every moment of sadness had helped him understand himself better. Now, when he looks at himself in the mirror, he does not see the confused, broken person he once was. He sees someone who survived, someone who learned, someone who grew. He sees a person who refused to give up even when everything seemed difficult. His story is not about perfection. It is about transformation. It is about learning to stand even when the world tries to bring you down. It is about rebuilding yourself with patience, honesty, and hope. He knows that life will continue to test him, but he also knows that he will face every challenge with a stronger heart and a wiser mind. And so his journey continues, not as a story of struggle, but as a story of growth. A story of becoming the best version of himself. A story of rising again, no matter how many times life pushes him down.